we have returned. We have returned with lots of things to talk about today, and I'm going to jump right in. Just a reminder, I don't usually check the chat till I'm little ways in, because I like to get a topic out and discuss it for a while. So once I do that, then I will adjust my camera a little bit of a camera adjustment. Once I do that, then we will open up for questions if I have any. So I want to talk about, I know I picked one topic and it was rules, and I do want to talk about rules, but I want to talk about the disillusionment a little bit of Ascension. And this has been a topic that I was listening to a course the other day, and this topic came up in there. So I want to kind of talk about that. Maybe you should have called this disillusionment of Ascension, or of what we think the journey is going to be and what the journey is, and the fallout of that, and the complete disruption of what happens when we think we're into one thing and all of a sudden we turn around and it's not that. You know, it was it's funny, that song, I think it was an old country, I know it was a country song, about Cinderella and does the shoe still fit you now. I don't remember who sang it. I have no idea. I can't remember. I should have looked it up before I got online. But hey Cinderella, maybe you can help us out. Does the shoe still fit you now? Because it is kind of a song about what we thought it would be and what it actually is, not what we thought it would be. Now, for whatever reason, when we get into Ascension, we have an idea of what we think it's going to be. You know, when we talk about ascending realities, soul line realities, our human has this conception that means money, power, fame, ultimate everything we could want. The only issue we have with that is that's coming from our human mind. Our human brain is saying those things. But this is what it would be, right? This is what, if we had all these things, this is what heaven would be. You know, so if we want a soul line reality, it is going to be money, power, the relationship we want, whatever it is our human wants. We list all that and go, that's what this is. You know, at the end of the day, I'm going to get all these things. So we go into fix-it mode, right? We start delving in to activate consciousness. You know, there's an activation of consciousness phase and there's an ascension of consciousness phase, which are two different phases. We can activate the consciousness sometimes 4 or 5 years before we actually will be embodying that consciousness. But when we're activating the consciousness, we can use what we want to do as humans is take that new knowledge and take those new awarenesses and take the new understanding. We get into telepathy, we get into energy and how our energy field's important, and we might take Reiki, we might have energy work done on us, and we start getting into maybe tarot, we get into crystals, we get into Andaras, we get into all this stuff. We take some courses because we're looking for something to fix the human world, and we're trying to fix a reality. I want to fix it, I want to fix it, I want to fix it. It's so fucked up, it's so distorted, I want to fix the whole thing. And it takes us a while to understand that all these things are not there to help us fix these old realities. These are human realities, they're not soul line realities. So they start to collapse. We double down on them more to try to fix them more because now they're even more distorted. So now we're going to go farther into a lot of this stuff. We're going to go farther into where we were before. We're going to go deeper into crystals. We're going to go deeper into these courses. We're going to continue to listen to all this very high frequency material because we feel like we're going to be able to take all that and fix everything wrong, which is not what our human life, which is not what we thought it was going to be. You know, even our human life never was. And I know I talked about this a couple weeks ago. You know, it's quotes in many movies. I always think of it when I remember the movie Grease, and she's like, well, it's not what I thought it would be. And the lady says, well, nothing ever is what you think it's going to be. Because our human mind always wants to glorify everything. Even when something's done, we'll glorify what it was. Everything looks better when it's leaving, you know? It's just the nature of our humanness. It's the nature of our ego. Everything looks better when it's walking out the door. Every reality looks better when it's closing out than it did when you were in it. Because we only glamorize the parts we enjoyed. We don't remember the other parts of it. We don't remember why we wanted to leave it in the first place. We just remember being in it and wanting to stay in it. even though it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, we didn't really like it that much. But in those moments, we forget that. We don't remember these parts of the journey. So we keep going a little bit farther. We keep doubling down. It's like we're in Vegas. We keep rolling the dice. We keep doubling down on all the metaphysical stuff to fix everything. And we get to a point where they start falling away. They start collapsing. You know, our relationships fade away. And this can take place over a short period of time. It can take place over a couple of years. Now, for me, the collapsing of everything probably took place over a solid year. Everything kind of collapsed at one time. Before then, I was just activating a lot of the consciousness, you know. I was semi-conscious, what I like to say, in some of these years. I would, and that to me means I would hit consciousness, but then I get into certain situations and I would disconnect and I would fall back unconscious and then live from my human ego, from my human consciousness for a while, and then pull myself out of it and then be conscious again and then go back. You're kind of going in and out. You're semi-conscious. There's still stuff that's going to throw you out of it, you know, and you're not going to be able to see the whole thing. And we really can't see the whole thing until we get completely out of it. Once we get completely out of it, we then unlock the consciousness, you know. So we're unlocking the consciousness for so many years, and then we start to embody the consciousness, which means what's not that consciousness has to go. What we didn't realize when we were doing all of that, none of that stuff was ever to fix human realities. They're to destroy human realities, you know, but if we don't have this misconception of it fixing it, we would never dive into them, right? So we dive into them to fix them. And this is when we also get into certain parts of Ascension, when you realize you're trying to fix stuff and we're not creating anything new. We're spending all our energy trying to fix the old, and we're not creating anything new because we have a story about leaving the old behind. You know, I don't want to leave this person behind. I don't want to leave this security behind. We have this feeling that the human realities are secure. And they're not secure. They're the most insecure thing we have. There's no security in a human reality. You will be cast out of any type of human reality you built if you don't toe the human line. You know, if you don't follow the rules, how we deem those rules to be, you will get cast out. You will get thrown out if you don't abide by those rules and abide by what we think is a good little human, to follow the rules. Whether when you're a child, you're following your parents' rules. When you get older, you're following society's rules in a sense. You know, what people say you should be doing. You know, we're asking doctors what we should do about our health. And most of the time, and I'm not saying sometimes there might not be an activation there for us in a lot of this, because there is, but I've seen some people follow advice almost off a cliff because we don't want to go in and look for our own answers. So we want to outsource everything. Our human's going to want to outsource anything. We're going to want to buy our way out of it. That's why we have money taken away from us for so much of our journeys, because we can't buy our way out of it. Buying our way out of it is the human's way of avoiding the problem. You know, I'll throw money at it and I'll avoid the problem. I won't go through the reality to clear the programming. I won't go through the reality to clear the emotions. The emotions are what keep the reality in place. We don't want to deal with the emotion. So the story itself of the reality doesn't matter. It's the emotion of the story that keeps that story kind of really deep in our body, while we keep living out the story. Because we don't want to deal with the emotion. We don't want to deal with how it makes us feel. We release the emotion, the story doesn't have any bite anymore. And realize the story is just a story we made up to defend why we felt the way we felt. You know, we make up the story to be around the emotion, to defend our emotion, to justify how we feel. We're going to make up a story of how it happened because this is how I feel. Instead of just saying, I need to clear this emotion, we keep doubling down on the story. We double down on all these realities to the point where they eventually collapse. Because everything we've used to fix them destroyed them. They were never meant to fix. They were always meant to destroy. Because soul-aligned realities are not human-aligned realities. They are not the same. And we get to these points where we feel like we're doing the whole thing wrong. You know, I would talk about this so much because I went through so many parts of my journey where I'm like, how come everyone else is living in the, you know, bliss and magic and talking about fifth dimensional realities, which is just the beginning. A fifth dimensional is just activating a consciousness. It's not embodying anything yet. It's not doing anything yet. I always get kind of perturbed when I hear people give advice when your realities are collapsing and you're into a different phase of aligning it, and you get very, what I would call, it's not misplaced advice. It's not like it's coming from a mean place, because it's not. It's just not coming from a conscious place. When someone would tell you, oh, everything has a silver lining. Oh, you just have to see it through. Or my favorite, hey, you're on a journey and you have to keep going through the journey. And keep going when they haven't had to realign anything yet. So it's kind of like it falls on deaf ears. Because I'm in a part of the journey that you're not in, so you can't really comment on where I am because you're not there, you know? Now, in a way that's true, and in a way that's not true. Their part of the journey is super important. And when we're in a different part of the journey, it's super important. But when we're in one part and we're hearing advice from someone who's not in that part trying to tell us what to do, and sometimes it can come off that way. And that's how we're going to hear it too, because we're already defensive about where we are. Because when we're in the part of the journey where everything starts to collapse, we all of a sudden don't have any footing anymore. Our human realities are gone. Everyone thinks you've lost your mind at this point, because everything you built in your human realities feels like it disappears in a couple of years. Some people even faster. Mine, it took a few years. Because I did mask quite a bit, but in a while it's all gone. You can't go back and play in the human realities anymore because you're really not allowed to. You can't support that. If you're supporting that, you're not supporting the soul line reality, so you can't go back and play in your old realities. So what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? So sometimes we will go back, and not go back so much physically, but we'll go look for answers in the human world. We'll look for answers with someone in their human consciousness. And then we get annoyed when we don't like the answer. Because we're trying to seek an answer that we can only seek in ourselves. And when you're really in the roughest places, your universe, which is just higher aspects of you, will usually send you a lifeline in something, whether it be a song, whether it be a quote you hear, whether it be a movie you start to watch. It will send you a lifeline. It's just, a lot of times we don't like that lifeline. It goes back into what we thought it would be. I don't want to go live in that reality. I want this one. I don't like that. I don't like the way it comes. I don't like how the money's coming in. I don't like who it is. I don't like anything about that. I want it to look like this. I don't want it to look like that. So we will reject a lot of the lifelines we're given. A lot of the boats that come our way to grab on, grab an oar and pedal away. We don't want to do that because we feel like it's supposed to be different. We have a lot of disillusions about what we thought it would be. And the funny thing is that when we had all those things, and even if we didn't have them to the extent we wanted them, I had a house, I had a spouse, I had money, I had cars, I had all that stuff, I still wasn't happy. In a sense of, you hit points of happiness here and there. All humans will, because you don't experience some kind of happiness. You don't know what that means. But your body vibration is not high enough to hold it. You can't hold that frequency. You can't live in that. So you start looking for other things. And then things start to fall apart. You start pushed in a different direction. And we get this impression that we fucked it up in some way because it's not going the way everyone portrays it. And it's funny how even when you get on, people will talk about Ascension, people will talk about, going through a lot of these different phases, and whether they're in the phase you're in or not, sometimes it can still help, sometimes it can turn you off. You don't want to judge where you are, where anybody else is, because everyone's where they're supposed to be. They're sharing something they feel like they're supposed to share, and it might not be for you. It might be for somebody else who's exactly where they are. And some of the stuff I share, some people don't want to hear that. It's like, Annette, why do you make it sound so awful sometimes? You don't make it sound fun at all. Because it's not always. It's a lot of this that's not. When you're going through this whole disillusion that the whole human life was a big lie, and we're trying to rebuild in a soul line reality, but what we thought that's going to be is not. So we have to work through all of that, all our programming as to why we thought that's what we wanted, when that's what we had, and we didn't want it when we had it. But now we're trying to amass more of it, thinking that would make us happier. We're trying to fix old realities. We don't want to create new ones because the ones we're creating don't look like what we wanted them to look like. It doesn't mean we can't have a lot of the stuff we felt we were going to be getting into. We can't have that at some point. And it won't come at some point. But it won't come and we need it to come. Because we have to appreciate what we have. Humans don't appreciate what we have. We never do appreciate what we have. You know, we will always try to have more, and we don't care what we sacrifice along the way. Humans as a collective don't, when you're in that human consciousness, and on the individual level, micro and macro, we don't care. To get what we want, we will sacrifice. We're one of probably the only species that will do that. We'll sacrifice each other to get what we want. We don't care. We don't care if 1% of us live in extreme wealth and other people have no food at all. It doesn't matter to us as long as we're in the percent that's okay. You know, we don't care about persecution as long as we're not getting persecuted against. If it doesn't touch our world, it was a book I read, and I can't remember what book it was. I do not remember. I think it was a Gene Keys book. I think that's where this was from. I think his last name was Rudd, who wrote the Gene Keys book. Very good, very interesting, really activating, could activate a lot of consciousness in these books. If the tornado, and he said, if the tornado doesn't hit your house this year, phew, you know, you just live your life, and you might feel, oh, too bad the tornado hit their house, you know, whether it be real or metaphorically or physically, but it didn't hit your house that year. But at some point, the tornado is going to hit your house. It's the way of the human experience. At some point, it's going to be you. You know, it might not be you this year. You might get by. You might roll the dice and you're going to get by this year. But next year, it could be you. That stuff starts to go away when you get into your soul aligned realities, because we work through all the fear of, okay, let me just throw myself in that tornado in a sense. Let me just see what happens if this happens. You know, what happens if it all comes crashing down? What is holding me here? You know, why am I so afraid of all these things happening? Is there a way for me to break free of that? And that's really what Ascension is. It's breaking free of that old consciousness. It's ascending to higher levels of consciousness and aligning to that. You know, I started this, actually when I started to come on, I was going to say, okay, we're going to talk about rules and we're going to talk about energetic guidelines. But this, actually, first part felt more important. But as humans, we would set rules, right? We would have these rules, you know, and we'd read books about rules we should set, and we would want to take everyone's advice on our rules. And they don't work for one very simple reason. We break our rules. Humans will break the rules depending on who's in front of them. They'll break their rules depending on the situation. I say this because I have broken the rules when I was in my human consciousness many times. They're dependent on what's going on. They're not steadfast. There is exceptions to the rules. You know, there's always an exception to the rule. And that's not because, oh, it's not just black and white and there's a gray area. There's an exception to the rule because we want something out of it. That's why we're doing an exception to the rule. If we want to be with this person, we might have these rules of how we want to be treated, but because it's this person, they get a pass. We see that a lot when we're in our twin flame realities. And we're working through that matrix, which is a whole effed up Disney movie in itself. We're in our twin flame matrices and in our twin flame realities. And we will break our rules. I did the same thing with my twins. I don't care what they did, especially the last one I went through, which is the last one. He was not held to the same, you know, rules as everybody else. He had different ones. Because we feel this energetic link to them. Like they're more special, they're more important. So we tend to have very soft rules. And we even see it not even in our own life. You see it in the collectives as a whole that are still really set on the rules. They're always made to be broken. It depends on who broke the rule. Who did that? Can they buy their way out of that rule breaking? The same rules don't apply to everybody. You know, our human realities are very, very lax on rules. Depends on who it is, depends on what they have. They can get away with it, they can't. It's always been like that. And in the human realities, it's going to stay that way. Because the rules are not really rules. They're just very much drawn in the sand. You can cross them, you can not cross them. It doesn't really matter. We really don't care that much. As long as we're okay at the end of the day, you can stamp all over our rules. We'll break them oourselves if we think it's going to give us a leg up on something. You start moving past rules because you can see all the disillusionment of the rules. You can see that they're not really rules. They're like playground rules, like kindergarten rules. Whatever the rules are, there aren't any. It's whatever we want it to be. We're going to make them up as we go along. We're going to break them, and then we're going to set new ones. We're going to set one line in the sand. When everybody crosses that, we're going to draw another line in the sand and see who's going to cross that. We don't hold fast to them. Because they're not built on universal consciousness. They're not built on respect. They're built on selfishness. We set rules out of selfishness. We don't set rules out of a true reality, in a sense. What we want a true reality to be. So we break them constantly. Break, 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 break. So we move to energetic guidelines, which is what our soul will set. And they aren't broken. Everyone is held to the same ones. Because it's respect for ourselves and respect for someone else's journey, and it doesn't matter who's in front of us. The energetic guidelines are the same. Depending on where you are, is where your guidelines are going to be. When you're in a reality, and the guidelines are you're supposed to be here to assist these people, you're going to set energetic guidelines for that reality. The core energetic guidelines to me can shift in a reality, but they're not broken. There's a conscious choice when you're in these realities of what the guidelines are. But the base of them really don't change. There is respect. Now, when I say that, there's an energetic respect in an energetic guidelines. I will be respected. You will treat me with respect. You will treat yourself with respect. The caveat to that is, some people who don't treat themselves with respect don't understand what that means. Which means they can't really abide by your guidelines. But not because they want to be ornery about it. They don't understand what that means. They don't understand what guidelines are. They don't have respect for themselves, so they can't respect you. They're still in a human consciousness. They don't even understand what that means. And human respect and soul respect are two separate things. Energetic guidelines and soul respect are allowing someone else to do their journey, even if that means that journey is going to lead them head on getting crashed in by a train. Because that's their journey, and that's how they're choosing to go. There's a lot of different realities you're going to get into where you're going to have core energetic guidelines. And there'll be sometimes people won't be able to hold them. And these realities are going to get closed out. You might get in a reality where you understand they can't hold the guidelines because they're just not there. You might activate them to a certain point. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, if you have tried to explain what you require in a reality, and it's not getting met, you will close that reality out. Or your universe will close it out for you. Because you will not break your guidelines. If we're still in that breaking of a guideline, it's no longer a guideline, it's now back to a rule. We start to understand that our energetic guidelines at how we're going to be treated and the realities we're going to set up it's the basis for our reality. It's what we build on. If we don't have energetic guidelines, then we can't have realities with people. And that's why when we talk about open, honest communication, we have to explain what our guidelines are. What is our energetic guideline? What cannot be treaded on? You cannot tread on this. This is it. If you do, the realities are going to get closed out. And there might be, for a while, people can toe that. But if someone is in a human consciousness still, even if they are able to even if they're able to touch on higher consciousness and live as that for a while, when their stuff starts getting harder and they have to start clearing more because now they're in a different place where none of their realities can stay, they could very much revert back to the human. Our humans will revert back. It's like being an animal in a cage. When things start falling apart, they're going to revert back to their strongest program, their strongest aspect. And if it's still a human, that's where they're going to go. we have to be okay with that, and we also have to be okay with knowing that they can't follow our guidelines and moving on to a different reality. And that might mean for a while you might be the only one in your reality, and you've got to hold yourself to those energetic guidelines. Hold yourself to the highest. So they're totally different. They're totally different. Totally different. I want to say sides of the same coin. I feel like I've said that a lot lately, but it's kind of what it feels like to me. Don't confuse the energetic guideline with a rule because you think it sounds better. If it's getting mangled, if it's getting shifted, if it's getting changed in the sense of it's getting broken, repeatedly it's getting broken, it's no longer a guideline. It is now a rule that just gets broken, doesn't mean anything. The minute someone can break a rule, there's no longer a rule. So if someone crosses the line, there's no longer a line. We have to hold the guideline in place of what's acceptable behavior. And we have to hold it in place for ourselves. If we can't hold it in place for ourselves, then we can't expect anyone else to be held to that. That's when we talk about ascension and we talk about living in our ascended aspects and embodying in the consciousness. It's more than just activating the consciousness. That's a small part of it, an important part of it, but still a small part of it. In the sense of the rest of your journey, which I realize that when I look at part of where I am, where I was and where I am now, activating the conscious is one thing. Rearranging your life is something else. And holding ourselves to the highest energetic guidelines that in that moment we can see. It doesn't mean that your guidelines won't upgrade as you go, because they will. The more you can hold, the more you'll expect others to hold. And you will realize when people can't. And for a while, they won't be in your life. And I'm not talking about someone that comes in your life for 15 minutes. You see them at the store, and it doesn't really matter. We're talking about people in your life, your everyday life. And the casual acquaintances you see every once in a while, I've said it before, you can go in to activate them. You might feel that you're supposed to go in and be part of their reality to help activate their consciousness. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to see you every 6 or 7 months, it doesn't matter what your daily decisions are and what you're holding yourself to. It's not in my reality. It's technically not my business. You can show up to assist when you're supposed to show up to assist. There's some people I might see every 6 months, every couple of years. And my role is to go in and activate them, listen to them. You know what your role is when you're there. You'll understand why you're there. It might not be why you think you're supposed to be there, But there'll be things you'll see when you're there. There'll be something you will see. Maybe someone needed assistance with something, but you didn't help. And then you have to look at, okay, I'm not going to beat myself up because I didn't assist that person, but why didn't I? Was it not appropriate to? Did I just not want to get my hands dirty? What was the reason? And that's big to look at that too. When I was there, I wasn't there why my human thought I was going for one reason. I ended up going there for something else. Sometimes we'll go there for one person and end up being there actually to assist someone else that we never even have met before. And sometimes it's when we don't do that, it's the bigger issue. Like, why didn't I help that person? I saw that person needed help, but I walked right by. Well, why didn't I? What was going on with me? We have to look at all that stuff. We have to look at how we present. Are we following our own guidelines? Because, like I said, you can't set them if we can't follow them. As humans, we don't care. Like I said, we'll set a rule. We don't even follow our own damn rules. It doesn't matter to us. We don't care. It's the biggest. I want to say blowhard, but that doesn't even belong in this sentence in a way. But it's just bullshit. We don't care. We don't follow our own damn rules. What difference does it make? Everyone breaks them. Even the collective rules about speeding, everyone breaks those. Until you get to a point where it's not so much the rule that keeps you from speeding. It's the energetic guideline of slowing down, being respectful to someone else, realizing that I'm speeding because I'm late. I'm speeding because I want everyone else to fall into line because I can get my own shit together. We start to see that stuff. We start to be conscious of what we're doing to throw monkey wrenches in our day, in a sense. We have to start understanding how we have contributed to the reality we're in as to why we're speeding down that road. So we're not abiding by the rule. We're abiding by, now at this point, what is my guideline? How should I act right now? Is it everyone else's fault that I can't get my stuff together? Of course it's not. But I have to be responsible for myself. Energetic guidelines will overtake your rules. And they can't be broken. And you will find that they become so sacred that you will be alone 100% of the time, then break your guidelines. Because you realize that's compromising on a soul level, and if you do that, you will get slapped upside the head every time. And quickly. Human karma takes a lot longer to come around to bite you in the bum. When you're dealing with your higher aspects and you know better, and you know when you've done something that's created karma, you know when you did something from your human aspect, and you just wait for it to come back around. It might be 2 hours, it might be 20 minutes, but you're like, oh, I'm gonna pay for that. You know, you just know. Because you can see how it all gets constructed. You can understand that, oh, okay, I won't do it again. I won't do it again. I can see why that was kind of not really the smartest thing for me to do right now. So, all right. There's probably a couple other things I could throw in. Okay, no, it's not just a video. I'm live. I just don't open up the chat till later on. So sometimes I'll get that when people ask if it's just an uploaded video. No, I'm live. But I tend to get a tad distracted if I have the chat on when I'm trying to get a point across. You'll find when you're doing what a lot of these videos, they'll call them the stream of consciousness videos, you're kind of bringing stuff in. Anything that throws you off your frequency, you can kind of forget where you were. And sometimes it can lead you in a different direction, which is where you're supposed to go. And sometimes it can just derail the whole thing. So usually I will cut them off unless I'm having a straight Q&A, and then I'll just leave them on. So if anyone has any questions, I will take the questions. If not, I will be signing off. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can bring in. There's a couple things. I think I'll probably just do videos on those later. I can't think of anything else specifically that I wanted to kind of bring into that. Just remember, if you're breaking it, if different people have different rules, it's not a rule. We make ourselves feel better because that has a strong sound to it, you know. Oh, it's a rule. Like we put a little stick in the ground on that, like, oh, this is my rule. It was a book years ago, and it was kind of a play on different rules. It was called, I can't remember what, Rules. It was a book about dating, and it was like Rules Girls, or These Are the Rules, or whatever. I don't remember. It was back in like the 90s. And I remember for a while, all the girls were following, these were the rules, and these are the rules. And it was so funny, because it was like, yeah, it always depended on the person. If you really liked the person, those rules would get bent the hell out of shape, and it did not matter, because they weren't really rules. It makes it sound better. It makes us sound stronger. But they're not. They're just something we throw out because we want to feel like we stand for something. But we don't. As humans, we don't stand for anything. We stand for ourselves. It is, I got my back, and I'm going to watch that. I'm not watching it. I can't worry about anybody else's back. I just got my back. And when push comes to shove, that's it. But when we're in our human consciousness, we want to believe that we're deeper than that. You know, that we're not all about ourselves when we are all about ourselves. There is no one else but us in that reality, and there's no one else but us. So we make up all these things, and we want to feel like we're really strong and entrenched in something. We are just about ourselves and what we want out of the reality. Every rule we make is what we want out of the reality. And if we can get what we want out of the reality, then we're happy. If we don't, then it's someone else's fault. You know, it's something else is going on. So, all right. I think I'm going to leave it at that today. And I will see everyone next time. Bye.